They are so brave. It just brings me to tears, honestly, because of just the rights that have been stripped away from women in Afghanistan. But here, with our help, I mean, one wants to start a car dealership. The other wants to be a lawyer or a judge. You can't really process the loss because you've got to be the strong, humble loser. But of course, I don't think I'm getting too personal. Like, I was so depressed. The grief is real.
Experiencing the attack was, by an order of magnitude, the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced. I will also say that being a part of the recovery was also incredibly transformative.
And we have such an imbalance of older Vermonters to working age Vermonters to students, and we really need to figure out why that is and fix it. And that's a solution to a lot of the problems of affordability we have. Hello, Vermont. I'm Andy Julo.
And I'm Joanna Grossman.
And this is There's No Way in Creamy.
Vermont Politics, Culture, and Beyond.
Thanks for joining us.
Hello, and welcome to There's No A in Creamy. This is season 2, episode 3.
All right.
I loved your drop-ins with the last episode. Yeah, that was solid. You backed it up with evidence. Oh my God, it was so amazing. So last week we got to talk with Kurt Wright. That was really fun.
Yeah, I'm already thinking of questions I want to ask him next time.
Yeah,
once the races start, it will be. I mean, that was the funnest part of the interview was the end where we started to speculate on 26, and he would be so much fun to just round table with about this race and what do you think? And yeah.
We should have one episode that's like a full-on punditry episode where we just speculate wildly about the campaigns. I thought it was so fun to talk with him, and I was just reminded of what a friendly guy he is. And they just really, despite being in the opposite party, he's really quite open-minded.
Yeah, he cares about Vermont, and he loves the whole game of politics and the people and the strategies and all of that. And you and I can understand that nerdy strain of the whole thing.
For better or worse.
Armchair political scientists that we are.
Well, one of the other stories, in addition to political punditry, that we've covered here on the podcast is all the stuff going on in Vermont with education reform. And let me see if I can get this right. The Commission on the Future of Public Education just met, and you attended that? Could you tell us a little about that?
Sure. So they met. They've been rotating the location of their meetings, and they met this past Monday at Folsom School in South Ural. And so they were created 2 years ago. The yield bill that I voted for created this commission of people with experience in education and some legislators to study the whole issue, put together some suggestions, and they had the rug pulled out from under them this past session, and a lot of their responsibility was pulled. They were supposed to come out this year with their recommendations. They've had some high-level resignations just because the people who are on that commission don't feel they really have a strong role anymore, and it's just not worth their time. But they came up, and they have a piece on how we put all this together and some recommendations to make. There were, quite a few parents there from people don't quite understand what all the roles are, so there were a lot of people, throwing things at this commission that really should be directed at legislators who made the decision.
Interesting.
Or should be at the
task force?
The task force to do the districting.
It is confusing.
It is. But they met for 3 hours, heard some public comment, heard some testimony, and it was interesting. I also went to a couple nights before Alberg did a public forum to talk about Act 73, and then Grand Isle did one last night. And community members came out and asked questions. There were some legislators there last night at the Grand Isle one. Lots of concern and questions that are, in my view, not being answered, and I think their view too. They said that that's been kind of the outcome here is nobody seems to be able to answer any questions. Very reminiscent of Act 46. I went through that whole process. I chaired the committee here for Act 46, and it just felt like the whole thing, like the anxiety that parents are feeling and community members are feeling about potentially losing their school.
Yeah.
And we're going down the same path that we went down in Act 46, and it didn't save any money.
Yeah.
And it didn't improve outcomes. And here we are just like repeating the same outcome. And I was sitting there and I was thinking, like, every time the school population drops a little bit, we want to turn the screw and we want to get that money back. That's like the most important thing. How can we get the 2% back because we've lost 2% of our student population? We've put all this energy into creating these systems and studies and these commissions. When are we going to start asking, why is that population going down? And how do we reverse that?
Yeah.
Because I was sitting in that library, and the kids are, Folsom is where I went to school, and thinking fondly of my experience there, and little kids are filing by and remembering when I was one of those little kids. And, every one of these kids, they're going home to families and they're working adults who are, contributing to our economy. And these kids are going to grow up and they're going to contribute to our economy. This is not a charity we're running here. This is an investment in our community that we all benefit from, regardless of age or whether we have kids in that school. And we have such an imbalance of older Vermonters to working age Vermonters to students. And we really need to figure out why that is and fix it. And that's a solution to a lot of the problems of affordability we have. We had younger people to offset healthcare costs. We wouldn't have such high healthcare costs. We had younger people to work. We'd have workforce, and we wouldn't have such inflation going on in the state. So it was a bit surreal, and I hope that the people involved in this, and in particular our legislators, one of the things that really struck me of Act 46 is the legislators that showed up for these Act 46 forums didn't seem to really understand what they had done. And I saw that again last night. They were not able to articulate why they had voted for it. They didn't seem to understand, the bill, what they had put in motion. And it was just, I could feel the anger of the parents, and I get it. Your kids are involved, and it doesn't seem like the people who put this in motion have done any work to really consider the outcomes.
Yeah, it's really pretty disturbing, really, when it comes down to it. It all just happened like so fast. It felt like it was just like jammed through at the end, and there was really we talked about this in an earlier episode, but like there's more public input on like changing a park in Burlington than the public really got for this. And this is massive. Yeah.
And there's been such a lack of engagement. Like there were people there and they were passionate, but it wasn't very many. And there really wasn't much engagement through the 454 and the Act 73 creation process. And I don't know what that means. Does that mean Vermonters just are resigned to change for the sake of change because we have such a problem with property taxes that just do what you got to do? Or is it just moving so fast that people are not catching up and understanding that our education system and probably the future of the state are about to change significantly?
I think that the average family, well, for one thing, when you're working parents, you don't always have time to pay attention to a ton of stuff, and that's a part of it.
Yep.
But I also think there's a factor that I think a lot of families really do not understand that their kid could end up going to a different school or a different district because of this. Like that message was not coming home. Like I would talk to neighbors about it now and then, and they were like, "Really? Like, wait, really? Is that right?" I was like, "Yeah, you might want to, check it out." I was talking to a friend recently whose tiny rural school in Maine was closed when he lived there, and he said that it economically just destroyed the town because the school was like the center, and that was when people would go, drop off at the school and eat at the diner and whatever. And it was like, I don't feel like the economic impact of that has been studied at all. I don't remember anyone really talking about that.
No, and you go to these commissions and they're talking about the value of resources and opportunities, and if we make these great giant blocks of schools, and they're going to be able to share all these resources around. Right. And the first wave of that Act 46, that is not what I've seen play out. We have strong identities around our towns and our communities, and it's more like a Cold War between the communities. Just because you break down the barriers and say these 4 towns are now part of a union school district does not mean they all start to share resources. The larger towns gang up against the smaller towns. To think that we're going to just suddenly go to these huge districts and everybody's going to disassociate from their town identity and see the children from the town next door as their own is not consistent with the experience we saw from Act 46 on.
Yeah. Something else that I'm wondering with all this is what we've been hearing from people we've been talking to is that, so the task force, the commission, and oh my God, what's the third one? That's
the ward?
Yeah.
And then there's a school construction commission, too.
Oh, right, that too.
I don't know if we mentioned that one.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
But the other three, and I'm not sure what their mandate is, the fourth one exactly, but I know a little bit. I know the other three have reports that are going to be coming out in December. But what we've sort of been hearing is like, oh, they're just reports, but the legislature is going to do whatever they want. And and I'm like, oh my God, we have to go through this all over again this session. I kind of feel like we're going to be starting from scratch.
It does seem like it's
nice.
shaping up that legislators have no real intention of listening to any of the commission findings or reports. They're going to use it as information, but they're going to make this a political process. And, the island schools were petitioning to be their own district at 900 students. Now, if you allow that, the rest of the state is going to, why would Burlington under this is forced to, they're not big enough. They have to work with another district.
That's right.
Burlington, of course, is going to say, well, if the islands at 900 can be their own district, obviously we can because we're at scale. We shouldn't have to do this. And everybody in the Northeast Kingdom is going to say the same thing. You either hold the line or you don't. And if you don't hold the line, then this is all a pointless, wasted activity. And we're just going to end up right back where we were, which is Vermonters want their local schools. And if they want that, then they need to pay for it.
That is real.
There in quick banner.
We did. Well, it's important. This is an issue
is.
that's important to both of us.
It really is. This is pivotal for the state of Vermont right now.
Yeah, and we've been hearing from you all, the listeners, that you care a lot about this issue too. So, we're going to do our best to keep covering it.
Yeah. A lot of people working hard on that, and a lot of people that are not working hard that should be working hard. Let's step it up.
Yeah, I think that's well put. Okay, so hard pivot here.
To our weekend. What are you doing on your weekend, Joanna?
I'll tell you, I'm running a race here in the islands. This is my first race since before the pandemic. I was like a regular half marathoner before COVID and all of that changed, and now I'm in horrible shape. And I'm trying to get back there, and so I'm running a 10K here in the islands. I'm very excited. And I'm 99% sure I'm going to complete the race. That's my goal.
Oh, I'm sure you will. You will. And it's a beautiful course.
Yeah. So how hilly is it?
Not at all.
Yeah. Okay, perfect.
No, it is very flat. It's all along the west shore of South Hero. That was not paved until a few years ago. So that's a little bit rougher. You are on asphalt where it used to be a dirt road.
I'm used to that in Burlington.
Yeah,
it's
most
okay.
people are at this point. I'm the only one who remembers it. That used to be my daily running route, and I love the dirt road.
Oh, yeah, it is. That's a nice surface to run on. I hear that.
Yeah. It's getting hard to find, though.
Yeah. And what are you off to do?
So it's like a Freaky Friday situation because you are in the islands running.
Yes.
Which is where you found me a year ago.
That's right.
I'm going to be in Queens looking for lemon ice.
Oh, my God. This is so true. Are you going to try to find the Lemon Ice King of Corona?
I don't think we'll venture off the subway route.
Yeah.
Because I have my mother with me, and she wanders.
Yeah, it might just be Italian ice, depending on, where you end up. It's the same thing.
Well, I was hoping they might have it at Citi Field, but maybe not.
They might. I don't know. I don't know if it's as much of a...
I don't remember seeing it, but if I walk around, the team's not much to watch right now, so I think I'm going to enjoy the stadium. They're having an alumni game, so they've got like Mike Piazza. And,
Al Leiter's going to be there.
Al Leiter's going to be there.
Will you give him a note for me?
Keep it in your pants, Grossman. I don't want to have to make an explicit tag on this one.
Okay. He's dreamy. That's all I'll say.
It's Mrs. Met bobblehead day, so we're going to have to get there early. You don't like Mrs. Met.
I don't. Just why?
Do you not like women in authority?
She doesn't have authority. She's his sidekick.
She runs the T-shirt cannon, Joanna. You think they're telling her where to blast that? She's making executive decisions out there on the fly. This kid looks excited. I'm going to send him a T-shirt.
I almost pulled my headphones out of the board. Yeah, I don't know. I still prefer the Philly Fanatic in terms of mascots,
I can't,
but I know how you feel about him.
I can't have this conversation with you again.
We talked a little about the Welch event that was here and how interesting it was, and we got to hear from so many constituents. One thing I noticed that we didn't talk about is that there was another speaker that night. I don't know if you've heard of him, but his name is Andy Julo. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little about why you were speaking.
I was asked to speak on the local issues that we're seeing here, and we have seen significant drops in revenues and receipts here because of a lack of Canadian traffic. And, so many of the businesses here in the islands rely on that, and it gets more acute as you get closer to the border in Alberg and Isle-la-Mont and North Hero. And, we have personal relationships with these people. It's not just about money. It's about these people have been coming back year after year, and they often email or text us in the off season, and and they're hurt. They're not coming here, and it's not the tariff so much. That's a business transaction, and it's not great. But it's the 51st state comments and calling the prime minister or governor, and Canadians are extremely patriotic, and they're hurt by that action, and so that has deeply impacted this region, and it's definitely hurting our economy, but it's hurting our cohesiveness as an area here with Quebec and the islands. And Canadian culture is very distinct, very different, especially Quebec culture, but it's never felt truly foreign to this region.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, as you know, I work for a Church Street business, and a lot of us have also been seeing many fewer Canadians. And I'm sure you followed this story that the Burlington City Council did this sort of ceremonial temporary renaming of Church Street as Rue Canada.
Yes.
And there was much laughing about that among the locals, but we've actually heard from our Canadian customers that they loved it.
That's great.
And really appreciated it. And that just goes to show, if that meant something, obviously there was a lot of hurt there,
Yeah.
So we have a really wonderful interview today. Former Lieutenant Governor Molly Gray joined us, and she told us all about her work with the Afghan Alliance, helping Afghan refugees and immigrants get settled here. This issue is really close to me, as you know, but probably a lot of our listeners don't. I was actually a September 11th responder. I was living in New York City on September 11th, and so I was living in Queens, which is right over the river from Manhattan, and on September 10th, 2001, I was working at my job at the American Museum of Natural History. I was there. I felt like I really had to get this thing done, and I was like, I'm just gonna stay until I finish it. And I ended up staying at the museum until 11 p.m. And I decided to sleep in the next morning, especially since I just finished this huge project. And Steve was already off to work when I got up, and I got up because our phone, our landline, this is how long ago it was ringing off the hook. It would not stop ringing. And I was like, oh my God, what is going on? And so I finally get up and I start listening to these messages, and they were crazy. And they were everyone was like, where are you? Are you okay? You didn't come to work, all kinds of stuff. People were looking for me, and they were like, did you hear about the World Trade Center? And I was like, what is going on? I just had no clue. And we had these windows that looked out onto Manhattan. It's not like we had an amazing view. It's just that was the direction. And there was this just huge layer of black smoke coming uptown over Manhattan, and I turned on the TV after the second plane had hit the second tower, and and everyone, the news reporters are saying, oh my gosh, this was a terrorist attack, it was an intelligence failure, all this stuff. And one of the crazy things about being inside a terrorist attack like that is that you don't know when it's over. So it's there's no finite start and end. So all of a sudden the city is just engulfed in this palpable fear. And we just didn't know what was going on. And so a few days later, I got a message from a friend, it was forwarded from someone who worked for the city of New York, asking if I would help them with the World Trade Center recovery, that they needed GIS people. And at that time, there was only a handful of people in New York City who knew how to use that kind of software. They were trying to map out the wreckage of the buildings. I mean, it was just such a mess. It was such a huge catastrophe. And I was like, sure, I'll help out. So I started doing this thing where I would ride my bike up to the Upper West Side where I worked at the museum. And then I would ride down the bike path along the west side to Pier 92, which is where they had set up the Emergency Operations Center, because it used to be in World Trade Center 7, which was one of the shorter buildings, but 7 had so much wreckage from towers 1 and 2 on it that it wasn't safe anymore, so they had to evacuate it. So they moved the whole operation up to this huge pier. And it was like crazy high security. I mean, I've lived in dangerous places before, and I had really never seen anything like this. And they give me all these badges and credentials and all kind of stuff. And it's like, you feel like a VIP, they're like, oh, you're here to do the GIS. Great. They sit me down. And it was just, the experiencing the attack was definitely by an order of magnitude the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced. And that kind of thing changes you on a molecular level. And it's hard to think about it without re-experiencing it. But I will also say that being a part of the recovery was also incredibly transformative for me. And it kind of made me realize I'm so glad I have this skill and I can help people with it. And it made me really determined to do public service from that point forward. And I ended up going to work for the Mayor's Office of Emergency Management for several years and helping with the recovery and some related projects. And it was really incredible, but this was a huge operation, and I just can't emphasize that enough. And so, I worked the night shift, so I was working from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. every day. And I don't really know when I slept. Looking back, I'm like, no, I think I just lived on adrenaline for a year. I remember one night, they would announce different things. Sometimes this is funny, but celebrities would come through to boost our morale, or people would a fancy restaurant would bring food for us to eat or stuff like that. So there was always all kinds of different random announcements. And one night they said, they announced that we'd started bombing Afghanistan. And I still remember everybody started applauding and hooting, and they were so happy. And I didn't feel that way. And I was really, I just felt like we didn't really know what had happened, how we'd gotten to the attack. I didn't feel like we were ready to go to war. This is a very poor country, I just was I don't know, it just didn't feel right to me. And, I didn't say anything to anyone. I remember just kind of keeping my head down. I had, hundreds of maps that people were waiting for. But, yeah, I never forgot that. And, as we saw that war unfold, it was a lot to process. And I'm really glad that Molly is helping these incredible people from Afghanistan who helped our country when we needed them, and to get them settled here. It was so fun to talk to her about it.
It was.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. I hope you guys enjoy this interview. Welcome to There's No A in Creamy, Molly Gray. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks so much for having me, and huge congrats to you both on season 2. What? How did that happen so quickly? I've really enjoyed listening, and just congrats on starting something refreshing, fun. You're both really cool. I'm kind of nervous to be here, but really excited to join you. So thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks for that. And thanks for joining us. As you know, you were on our wish list for a while, and I'm glad we were able to finally connect. So you and I got to know each other a little bit during the 22 campaign cycle. You were running for office on a statewide level, and I was running a campaign statewide. And so we inevitably saw each other kind of constantly, and that was fun. And we've seen each other a little less the past few years, but we still live in the same neighborhood, so bump into each other now and then. You're doing something really different now, so am I actually, but I'd love to know if you could share a little bit about your work now.
Sure. I helped launch, I guess, and now leading what's called the Vermont Afghan Alliance, VAA, which was really founded by a former Navy SEAL who served in Afghanistan and an Afghan man who had the good fortune of going to school here in Vermont, was planning to go back to Afghanistan in 2021 and run for parliament. And then, as you know, arrived back in Afghanistan in 2021, already the pieces of the withdrawal were starting to gear up. So he was quickly able to get his new wife and family out of Afghanistan, came back to Vermont. And the initial idea, like concept for the Alliance, was to really support people in getting a driver's license, because what's really unique about resettlement in Vermont today, as compared to before 2021, is that resettlement's happening of refugees, Afghans, and other refugee groups outside of like the greater Burlington, Colchester area. So now there are 650 Afghans in Vermont, in Bennington, Brattleboro, Rutland, St. Albans, Montpelier, White River Junction, the Hartford area. So not having access to a car anywhere is tough, even if you're resettled in downtown Burlington, but it's really tough if you're resettled in a rural area. So that's how the Alliance started. 2023 January, I was super depressed, having left the Lieutenant Governor's office. My term ended, also having come off a really hard congressional campaign loss, and was like entering the second trimester. So feeling a little bit better physically, but really trying to figure out what the heck I was going to do. And I had been in touch with the founders sort of as an advisor before that, but said, hey, could I help you? Can I help put the skills and some experience that I have to bear to help build the organization in an interim role? And so I kind of came in, helped build like the budget, financial management systems, website, worked to build out some initial programming, and then applied to a number of grants. I thought, we're not going to get these. We're too small. We're too new. But then I went on maternity leave, had Jack, the day that my maternity leave, which was like, I had no contract, I had no job. I was just like, we'll see what's going to happen here. We found out that we had federal and state funding. So we went from a budget of about $25,000 to about $700,000 in 2023, which meant that the organization could hire staff, Afghan staff, really build out programming beyond the driving program, which we still have. We still have the Toyota Corolla. It's in the garage, like tons and tons of driving lessons. We now have commercial driving insurance, like the good old passenger break for instructor. So I guess maybe I didn't answer your question. I'm so passionate about this.
No, it's great. It's great.
I'm so passionate about it. And it's this like amazing intersection of helping to grow Vermont's workforce, helping to kind of think about our demographic crisis, and which I've always been passionate about. Like, how do we get people to move back to the state or come here and really stay here and thrive? And then you may not know, but my background professionally as a trained international human rights lawyer, practiced human rights law, and also just spent the early part of my career kind of taking the DoD to task on hiring corrupt private security companies, committing human rights abuses or defending Guantanamo detainees and advocating for their rights. So for me, it's this like beautiful mix of like fighting for and supporting deep policy changes in Vermont that I love, but also really helping us keep a commitment to a population that we made these Afghans refugees. We, the United States, did.
Yeah. Well, my colleagues down in Brattleboro for the RDC, the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, have really embraced mobilizing refugees to fill in the workforce that is so desperately needed. And I was at the Capitol with them, supporting them as they helped advocate for the Office of New Americans. And that effort, and what are some of the other efforts that Vermont is doing that you think we need to do to help support integrating these folks into the workforce?
There's so many pieces. I mean, I think to go back to the driving example, it's incredible now that Vermont is building this infrastructure outside of a traditional resettlement area like Burlington. And you see amazing examples like what Alex Beck and BDCC is doing in Brattleboro. That's also happening in Bennington. It's happening in Montpelier. But there's still infrastructure pieces. And the social, cultural piece is really important. Like, is there access to a place for prayer for some people? Like, there are not a lot of mosques in Vermont. We have one, right? There are not a lot of halal markets or even farms that are necessarily producing like halal meat and kind of going through that accreditation process.
We only have one mosque in the entire state?
Officially, the Islamic
one in South
Society.
Burlington?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And as you know, there's like Shia and Sunni. And so
Yeah.
even within Muslim religious culture, there's kind of different people want to go to different mosques. But so there's like this infrastructure piece around food, around places of worship. And then there's like the real tangible infrastructure, which is kind of a bigger Vermont question, which is housing access to housing that is safe, that's clean, that's, weatherized, then access to transportation, making sure that people can get their driver's license so they're not prohibited in employment access. And a lot of those pieces have to be addressed in tandem at the same time, especially now under this administration, because there's very, very little ongoing support for any refugee. Well, Vermont, the United States isn't welcoming any refugees aside from a small group of Afghans and now Afrikaners, kind of another question and topic. But I think what we're doing really, really well is that it's at the local level that these communities of support are being built up. And it's through chambers of commerce, workforce development initiatives. And then I would say like kind of local groups of people who say, we're going to start a small nonprofit. We're going to fundraise. We're going to work with newly arriving refugees. And we're going to do resettlement, not in a designated resettlement agency sort of way. We're going to do it in a way that like we may know best because we know the community well. We know what resources are available. There's downsides to that. I mean, I think that sometimes people may not know where they're doing more harm than good, but overall, Vermont has the largest population of Afghans in the nation per capita now because of this capacity that's built up around the state. So, and to your point, Andy, about the Office of New Americans and the study committee, I think it was a lot of people like yourself coming forward and saying, this actually is a huge part of our workforce picture. The state economist has already said, there's no possible way we're going to birth our way out of our workforce crisis. It's going to happen because of immigration to the state. So I think it's a really exciting moment. And I hope we do have a representative from the office on the ONA study committee. I really, really hope that it's a strong process and that ultimately the legislature says, yeah, this is an imperative for the state. So it's an exciting moment when there's, really unexciting things happening otherwise nationally.
I think it's just amazing. Like, I don't know if you know this, but I'm a third generation American and my family were refugees who came to this country and they got settled here in part through the help of HIAS, which is probably a group you've heard of. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Wow.
Yeah, still exists today. And, like the Grossmans wouldn't be here and on our feet if it weren't for like organizations like yours who help people get organized a little bit, just little things here and there, right? I just think like, wow, I'm so lucky that I get to live here and my family got settled here and ideally we get to stay here, And I'm wondering if you would mind sharing a couple stories maybe about these amazing people who helped our country in their home country and now had to come here and what their lives are like and what those challenges are like.
There's so many, and I I could go on and on. I would say there's one that's really, really fresh, as in there was a small success on Monday, so maybe I'll share that one. When the U.S. left Afghanistan, it was the largest civilian airlift in U.S. history. I think there were like 125,000 civilians evacuated in that 2-week period. Probably remember like the scenes on CNN and everything else, people chasing the planes, but there were 145,000 individuals estimated who worked directly with the U.S. government or with a U.S. government contractor, and that could be with USAID, USDA, Department of Justice. There were so many projects across the country. There was an estimated 145,000 individuals who were left behind. So even though the evacuation, right, that we all saw was over, the true evacuation was far from over. So since August of 2021, Vermont has been welcoming Afghan refugees, and refugees, not the legal term refugee, I guess that could be asylum seekers, people under humanitarian parole, special immigrant visa holders, to Vermont. And in January, the Trump administration completely shut down the U.S. refugee admissions program and said, well, we're going to continue to allow special immigrant visa holders, that group of 145,000 to come, but we're not going to pay for their plane tickets. So if they can get to Pakistan, if they can get to the embassy in Islamabad, consular processing will get them a visa. And then they're going to have to either pay for a ticket or find someone to pay for it. And then when they get to the U.S., hopefully there's some organization that can support them. And that's where we come in, because we were able to use some of the state funding that we received to provide like very basic employment and housing support. We're talking like 2.5 to 3 months. So the runway extremely short to financial security. 3 women, all who worked with, or 2 who worked for USAID, were able to get to Pakistan, were waiting there throughout the summer, had their special immigrant visas finally approved, and then arrived in August. Yesterday, they moved into their first apartment, 3 together. Oh. They're all finding jobs. One of them, they're all 3 taking driving lessons, and 2 other women arrived earlier this summer, both passed the road test, would never have had the chance to drive in Afghanistan. They are so brave. It just brings me to tears, honestly, because of just the rights that have been stripped away from women in Afghanistan. But here, with our help, are really able to, one wants to start a car dealership. The other wants to be a lawyer or a judge. Just like,
you're getting me in the feels, Molly.
It's just, and that's real. Like, it's real. And then there are the men who worked with the U.S. government, the U.S. military, some with the intelligence community, who were sent to the airport in August of 2021, sent to secure the airport for the U.S. government. They were told, you need to get on a plane. We're going to get you out of here. Don't worry. Your wives and kids will come within a year. You're going to leave them behind. And for them, it's been 4 years. And it's just, and delays in getting their green cards, families still have not been reunified. So it's a policy of family separation, and just the absolute heartbreak of watching your kids grow up over WhatsApp calls. And so we serve many, many of those men, helping them again to get jobs, driver license, help with free tax clinics, and much more. But it's personal and it's human.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Are you seeing a reduction in funding and cooperation from the federal government? And if so, what can Vermonters do to help fill that gap and make these people feel welcome?
Thank you for asking that. Of course we are. Yeah. And we were awarded a 3-year grant from the federal government in 2023. I told you I was coming back from maternity leave, and the day the grant was supposed to start, we found out that we had it. So we had like 3 months to hire staff and launch programming. And then last year, 1 week after Trump's inauguration, our funding was frozen. So I literally went in to like transfer funds from the PMS system to pay staff salaries, and we couldn't do that. So we had to like park the car. I was like, no, there's absolutely no spending, like none. Like, we can't even buy gas. Like, just do not. And then largely, and this is a huge shout out to Attorney General Charity Clark, and just this fierce, focused, continuous leadership in litigation to stop a lot of these orders. It was because Charity made Vermont part of nationwide litigation to ultimately put a TRO on this attempt to freeze funding, and then there was a permanent injunction. So that funding has come back. We hope we're going to get it for the 3rd year, but we still don't know. We had to reapply, which is unique, and we have to deal with DOJ every single time we do a drawdown request, it's like, staff salaries are staff salaries. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. Like,
what does that look like? What is the user experience there? Like literally ask you questions, and
they do. We get like follow-up emails. About just how we're submitting requests. So we submit, a line item budget like to the to the penny on how everything's going to be spent, and that's approved. So it's to have to go through additional justification when the budget's already been approved is doesn't seem like the best use of time. But so we need the support of Vermonters, and we're thrifty. We are 7 people. We assisted more than 250 Afghans last year. We've welcomed 15 people since March. So the real funding needs that we have are for next year. We have a strategic plan, we have a budget. Fundraising process now is for our legal assistance programs. We have an immigration attorney. And then there's just small gaps here and there. We want to make sure we have childcare so all women can attend any training. We want to make sure that we have gas for the tank and after our federal funds run out. So Vermonters can chip in on our website, Vermont Afghan Alliance, vtafghanalliance.org, send a check. We do love checks because then there's no money going to a third party. Yeah. But also we accept donations, furniture, bedding, a lot of the essentials that families need when they first move into an apartment. And sometimes just good old-fashioned labor in the office, be it, willing to scan documents or come in and help with some fundraising or help with events and setup. So it's all hands on deck, and we welcome the support in a way that feels best to the community.
Let's touch a little bit on your time as lieutenant governor. It's a fascinating role in that everybody does it a little bit differently. Obviously, you're a heartbeat away from the governorship. You preside over the Senate, but a lot of it is open to interpretation. How did you approach the role of lieutenant governor?
I absolutely love that job, and it is kind of a peculiar position because you're technically part of the executive branch, but you also sit in the legislature. And then there are these very, very specific duties that relate to the legislative process or the Senate legislative proceedings, plus the committee and committees. And then when I was lieutenant governor, we had this added peculiar element, which was that it was the middle of COVID.
Right.
And for the first year and a half, so pretty much the majority of my time as lieutenant governor, except for the last, I would say 6 weeks of the session, we were remote. So I was at the dais, going through the legislative proceedings and helping to kind of keep the process going, keep it going forward. Then President Pro Tem Becca Balint was there as well. And I'm not laughing. I can laugh about it now, but at the time it was very hard and very weird, but it was an empty chamber. So we were there with John Bloomer and tons of TV screens, computer screens, just kind of trying to keep the process moving forward. For me, the job of presiding was not one that I ever took lightly, and that I was coming in every day, reviewing what was on the calendar, sitting with John Bloomer, who sort of is the parliamentarian, right? He knows the rules forward and backwards, reviewing all the bills that were going to have to be distributed to committees, and just making sure I fully understood where the process was at, what we were doing, where things were going, because one, I felt like that was my job. This isn't just a hey, I'm here in case something happens. I felt like I needed to know and I needed to be informed. And 2, I wanted to be really careful at all times that the other senators didn't see me as a political person or a Democrat, but really saw me as a thoughtful presiding officer that was going to be fair. Because ultimately people thought that I was kind of acting in a political way or was trying to influence the process in some way. They weren't going to trust me and they weren't going to trust the process. And that was so important that the legislative process was one that was trusted, transparent, and open. So I took that really seriously. I reflect on it now and I'm I'm not sure all lieutenant governors are that nerdy in that way. Maybe it's that I'm a lawyer, but I loved it and I still love that. And then there were other pieces of the job that I found really interesting. I set up this, it's called Seat at the Table series, which we had individuals from around the state come in virtually and have these public discussions about issues that were coming up. I did lieutenant governor for a day. We had all these kids come in. We talk about what the legislature does, what the lieutenant governor does, and then they would help preside in the Senate every Wednesday. So there were just some initiatives that felt really important to me to try to make the office more open, more accessible, and then to kind of allow it to be a place where a lot of discussion could happen. But yeah, it was.
And you were one of the first to get out and do a recovery tour and start to gather the needs.
The recovery tour.
I met you for a creamy at Seb's. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That was so much fun. So much fun, but also really hard in that this is like COVID really hurt Vermont. I mean, it hurt a lot of people. I think that we, the state, should be very proud of all the measures we took to keep people safe, but it didn't come without pretty serious impact, right? Economically, on kids' mental health. There's like a whole generation going into college right now that's like struggling with what that's going to be like for them.
Yeah.
But it did allow me to get around to every corner of the state. We did go to 13. I think we combined like 2 Kingdom counties into one and went up to Newport, but to most every county and listened and just spent a lot of time listening, and then came up with a report of like, these are the outcomes, and this is what we heard from Vermonters. I don't think the legislature was like, too thrilled to have the lieutenant governor, tell them what they should focus on. But I think ultimately, the governor was very happy, and it was just like, I think it's important to really listen and try to distill and figure out, what people are feeling. And I think that that's like one of the biggest challenges right now.
That's one of the things that's great about statewide office and statewide campaigning is really getting to travel around and talk to all kinds of different people. And I mean, you can do that. A person, if they put the work in, can do that in their own district too. But I just think it's so important to understand the breadth and depth of the Vermont population and not make assumptions that everybody thinks like you or has the same experience as you do,
Absolutely. It's a pretty big privilege.
Yeah.
Vermont's, the beauty of the state, or like all the time I was like, what? We make that here? This is done here? I don't know, falling in love with the state like over and over and over again through the process too.
All of us on this call have experienced pretty deep and profound losses at the polls, and it's a very difficult thing to go through, but you do get through it. And we've all kind of given each other advice, and you gave me some advice that I actually had to use last night after an interaction, and I appreciated it. But it is so important for folks to put themselves out there, and you do gain a lot. It is hard to lose, but it's not the end of the world. And many, many times you gain respect in people's eyes for having fought a tough fight and put yourself out there. And we need folks to put themselves out there in 26. I mean, what advice do you have for people considering and thinking, well, I don't want to run because I might lose?
Oh, gosh. How much time do we
have? I know, right? It's a great question.
Deep topic.
I think that the first thing when I was thinking about recently I was kind of thinking about the moment I learned that I won the primary when I ran for lieutenant governor, and just like how wild and special of a night that was. But even in that moment, you can't really reflect on it too much because all of the things go into place that you have to take care of. And then the same is actually true on a moment of loss, right? Like you can't really process the loss because you've got to be the strong, humble, respectful loser. And I think to like show people that you can lose and it's going to be okay. But of course, and I don't think I'm getting too personal, like I was so depressed. It was like hit me like again and again, like it like hit me in October. And then then I also got pregnant, and like then I didn't know what was hitting me because everything was hitting me. But like, right. The grief is real, and and then I think you're also kind of going through this process of figuring out, well, what did I do wrong? What am I going to learn from this? What was said about me that I need to learn from? And like, wow, did I project myself in such a way that that's seen as true? Because I don't see myself that way. And kind of just like working through just who you are as a person. And then there's do you do this again question. My advice for people who do want to run, it's kind of threefold. I think there's like three questions you have to ask. Like one, just like why for yourself, deep in your core, do you want to be in the office that you're running for? Like, is it because you care deeply about education policy, or you really want to work on this big demographic question on a statewide level, or like is paid family and medical leave something to you that is so critical and so important that you feel like you've got to do something about it, right? There's that like question of like, it's visceral, it's deep in your, whatever, deep in your soul somewhere. There's that. Then there's the question of, am I the right person for this right now? And part of that's kind of the political question. I think a lot of it has to do with just listening, like where are Vermonters, where are the electorate at? And then the third piece is just the nuts and bolts of running a campaign. Do I have the ability to raise the money? Do I have the ability to organize a team? Do I have the ability to really win this race based on my calculus of all that? And that's kind of like a sports question. Like I grew up ski racing, like, you have a training plan every year and you put in the hours and you're like training for the Olympics, right? It's like, I think about like Olympians. It's like a kind of a different question than the first two. But I think for anyone running, I'm a strong believer that if you're pretty good with 1 and 2, number 3 you can figure out. And I believe that there isn't, this may sound cliche and I've said it before, but I really truly believe it, that there's no one path to office, and that at this moment in particular, if people believe that they have something to give and they're eager to serve, especially in this environment, just do it. Like, get out there and do it and be part of the conversation. I never thought that I was going to win the lieutenant governor's race, but I sure as heck wanted to be part of a conversation about this thing that I was experiencing, and I knew I wasn't the only one. And that was like, win or lose, we're changing the conversation. And I felt like we ran a pretty respectful campaign. And so I think like, if you approach it from that angle, you really can't lose. But yeah, losing is hard, but you will be okay. You will find purpose again. The VAA has healed me in many ways. I've loved it. And I know the two of you, both of you are a shining example of that as well. And I'm curious, like, about your own path. Like, maybe we should have a conversation just about that. Like, how do you heal?
Turn this into group therapy.
Yeah. It's not linear.
No, it's not. It comes in waves. Yep.
Yeah.
And the perspective just always seems to shift in your own mind. You look at it through many different lenses, and you have to work through each one of them. Yeah.
I feel like, losing it, like, now I've run 17 campaigns in Vermont. I lost 4 of them. And like, when the first one I lost, Chris's race, like that was devastating. That was absolutely devastating. And it, like you talked about being depressed after, like I was just miserable after, like such a wreck. And that's so real. But I learned so much from that experience. And I just feel like a part of me now that I'm so far away from it and I'm not like crying about it all the time anymore. Like, I'm not
laughing, but yeah.
No, you should laugh.
It's real.
It's so real, but it's also like, I'm also grateful for that experience because I really got to reflect on the campaign and on the political landscape with a much sharper, like more critical eye, and like saw all kinds of things, and it helped me with all my campaigns since then, so, I like no regrets on any of that. I love that you said people should just do it. They should just do it. I want everybody to run for everything.
Especially now. Like, yeah. I don't think we should be telling, there's some people who should not probably run for office because if they're not willing to uphold the Constitution and fight for human rights. There's like, that's a whole other question. But otherwise, I'm like, if you're interested right now, like we need you. And I was listening to this interview with Sonia Sotomayor, Supreme Court Justice, over the last couple of days when she was an ABC interview. And I think people are so hungry for figuring out, like, what can I do? I feel like I have no ability to impact anything. And she's basically like, this democracy is ours. And 1, people have to realize, 1, like the warning signs, but then 2, just figuring out how to get involved in some way and to like hold it and take care of it. And I'm like, okay, like that sounds like a little woo woo, but like, what is that? So like, what does that mean? And like, part of it's like run for office, get involved with nonprofits. Like, yes, there are the individuals who need to be and can be and should be protesting and moving the conversation in a public way, but there's many other ways to hold the line with democracy, like right now, day in and day out in our daily lives.
And there are a lot of offices out there, very small ones, if you want to start, library trustees, planning commission, all these great places to cut your teeth.
And those are so important for like building the bench and like, I mean, a lot of big stuff is decided at the municipal level. The Amazon thing was decided at municipal level, you know, and those things can affect the whole state. So those offices are super important.
Absolutely. I feel like you should never underestimate current times being a good example. You should never underestimate the ability of one person to do a lot of harm or a lot of good. And we just don't know sometimes how much impact we can actually have, right? Mm-hmm. And huge props to you, Joanna, with like so much of what you're doing. And also, I forgot to say, I heard you're stepping down. We are all deeply grateful for your service.
Oh, Molly, you're so sweet.
And organization. Yeah. I hope we can say that on there. I am saying it right now. We're getting personal.
No, it's fine. I mean, thanks for that.
People aren't usually nice to Joanna on this podcast. So
that's right.
We'll let it fly.
My co-host especially. I have to rely on the guests to be nice to me. I'll just say quickly that, I loved doing service as county chair, you know, and it was really important to me to bring new people in, and it was really important to me to support down ballot candidates because they're like these amazing, wonderful people who want to serve their communities and have no idea how to do it. And I was like, I know how to do it, you know. So that was a big part of why I ran, and I kind of wanted to show the party what we could do if we wanted to, and I kind of feel like I did that to the best of my ability. And now I'm, doing this podcast thing, and I got a teenager, and I got some other ideas in the hopper. So, but thanks for that.
Now I want to ask you about Nordic skiing because you and your family are accomplished skiers, and my wife and I, we met on the high school Nordic ski team. I'm just wondering what Nordic skiing has meant to you. You skied for the Catamounts. What's your favorite trail? Where do you love to ski, and do you still go?
Oh my goodness. I'm getting so excited about this winter. I feel like you probably feel this too. It's like so just biological at some point. Like the weather starts changing. It starts getting colder.
Yes. Well, the South Burlington ski sale happens the next weekend. And so I see those signs. Yeah, South Burlington is the first one of the year. And I see those signs and I think, all right, we're headed towards normalcy again. Let's do this.
But it's like, I get this, like, it's kind of like an itchy, antsy feeling. Like, I'm like, it's coming. It's coming. And that excitement for the season. I am in the worst shape of my life. So I'm also trying to like get to the point where like I could go skiing and go skiing with Jack and not have to just pull over all the time. But I grew up in like a very rural area. My dad would take the Ski-Doo, the snowmobile out back and like groom trails at home on the farm. And then he went to this place called Tucker Mountain, which is in West Newbury, north of us. Now there's a town preserve park there with great trails, but he still goes up and he still grooms around Tucker Mountain. And it's this place where when the sun starts going down, the sun coming from the west east shines right on Mount Moosilauke in New Hampshire. I grew up in the Upper Valley, and it turns purple, and you're in this field, and it's just potentially one of the most beautiful winter places on the planet, in my view. But just to like, I don't know, my dad, he still ski races. He went to 2 Olympics. Like he lives literally, he's 87 years old. He lives for cross country skiing. It is his passion. Like anybody you talk to, Bob Gray, like that's it. That's his thing. And for him, it's very kind of a religious experience. So we just were like raised with like skiing was like part of our upbringing. And I was always like, Dad, okay, sure, Dad. But now at 41, I'm like, oh gosh, darn it. Like I'm kind of my dad. I feel that it's just such a beautiful sport. And like when the wax is right and you've got a good kick and a good glide, and I love skating now too, and you're out there, it's it's just such a beautiful sport. So I'm excited this winter. If it wasn't Tucker Mountain and cruising around on those trails at home, we do go to Sleepy Hollow a lot. I love it there. The trails are accessible. It's so family friendly. My husband started doing like the Wednesday night race league. I didn't do it last winter, but the winter before. And I'm hoping to join him this winter. But just what Eli Emmett and the Emmett family have built, they're very environmentally focused. They have like EV groomers even. It's cool. And it's like, I don't know. I'm excited. But what about you? I'm super curious. Like, where's your favorite trail?
Yeah, well, first of all, I had the misfortune of being the same year as Eli in high school, and they always put the good skiers in the back, so I just hear this as he went by. I mean, he is.
I think that still happens for most people who compete with Eli.
Yeah. So we've gone to Trap Family Lodge for the last 15 years or so, and this last year we decided we've been splitting between winter hiking and skiing, and we're like, well, maybe we'll just do winter hiking, and we missed it so much. So I am so excited to get back and do that skiing again. And there's nothing like nailing your kick wax on a cold day.
Yeah. Extra blue, sometimes short, sometimes long.
Yes.
I would love to get out with you and your family this year.
Absolutely.
Let's make it happen.
All right.
And Joanna, I know you're like, you've got like ski boots while there are ski skates behind you, but you should come too. And you should do a podcast from the great outdoors.
Oh, I love it. I did a little bit of just like flat skiing around the Intervale last year. Before COVID, I used to telemark. I used to skin up Bolton and ski down a lot. And I was in way better shape then, but I do want to get back on my tellies.
Should we go to a creamy order?
Yeah.
I'm excited about this one because you're from the other side of the state and you have traveled the entire state, campaigning and the recovery tour. I bet you have had a lot of creamies at a lot of different places. So what's your creamy order and where are you getting it from?
This is so hard. It's like having to choose between like all your favorite children. Okay, hear me out. And you're probably going to be like, are you serious, Molly?
I can't wait for this.
Really? So, I generally love like a really good maple creamy. I also love a twist, but sometimes I'm like, I kind of want like a vanilla maple twist. Like I know that's kind of weird, but I kind of want a vanilla maple twist. But very, very few places allow you to have that combination, right? Because it's maple black raspberry or chocolate vanilla. So we're up in Newport. And we pull up and there's already this like long line, like, oh, this is going to be the best creamy stand. I know it. I can't wait. I haven't tried this yet. I've heard all the things. And we get to our, to the counter and they're like, would you like, vanilla maple? And I was like, what? So yes, I tried it. It was good. I feel like I need to try a few other places because I was like a little too light on the maple, but sometimes like solid maple creamy, I am on the biggest sugar high and like ready for takeoff for too long. And so I'm excited to, I guess I would encourage your listeners who are in the creamy business to consider the maple vanilla twist.
Whoa. And do you get either crunchies or sprinkles on that?
No, I'm like straight up in the cone. Yeah, sorry.
Everybody's joining Team Andy.
I'm actually like, I'm really not a sprinkles person.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just don't.
That's all right. We can still be friends. This was awesome.
This was Molly Gray. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you both so much for having me and making me feel so comfortable. And this was fun. And I truly mean I'm excited to get out this winter. And thank you both for creating some space for like interesting conversation, powerful conversation, deeply informed conversation. It's been really fun to listen to. So keep it up. I look forward to season 3 and always happy to come back on in the future.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode.
Thank you all for listening.
Follow us between episodes for the latest updates on our socials at There's No A in Creamy on Instagram, Substack, and Blue Sky.
And catch us on our next episode of There's No A in Creamy, Vermont Politics, Culture, and Beyond in Apple Podcasts and Spotify.